Well, Chris here says there are 3 other names that are gearing up for a breakout. So let's go off the charts. And Chris, why don't you head on over to the
Yeah, and we're going to look at the S&P, and we're going to look at the S&P 3 ways. And I think what we need to remember here, when we look at the price action over the last really 12 weeks, we had 20% down in the fourth quarter, down 20 over 12 weeks. Now we have up 20 over 8 weeks. So I think the big question is, back to this key 2,800 level, is this the real thing or is this not the real thing? There's 2 possible outcomes. Here's the bearish take. You put a top in early last year, you made a higher high, middle of last year, failing at a lower high. Big top formation. That's not our base case. I think the more likely outcome here is when we look at this formation that's taken shape on the S&P chart over the last couple months, there is just really good support in this 2650 range. And I think if you get a pause here, or if you get a pullback, 2650, even 2700 is going to show up as good support. And I think ultimately that holds and it pushes us up to new highs. But ultimately under the surface, we need the stocks to drive us there. What are the names that are going to get us there? And I want to give you 3. The first we all know, Microsoft, very quietly, still very much a leader versus the S&P. So it outperformed in 4Q, outperforming in 1Q. That is a leadership name. We think ultimately it gets up on its way to 120. The other was in a bear market last year. This is Facebook, down 45% in 2018. Stock was up today. You had a broad sell-off today, Facebook up. It's pushing up against new highs. This is showing up as a relative leader. I think this is another name that can push the index up as we move through the first quarter. And then here, I think, is the big test. I think ultimately, if this market's really going to work, we're going to need to get some of these banks involved. I think Bank of America has to be our bellwether. BAC right at 30, really big level. You get it above 30, I think the bull case for the S&P becomes stronger. And what we really want to watch here is the relative strength of BAC versus the market improving. Starting to see a little improvement there with some of these banks. I think Bank of America, Facebook, and Microsoft can get this S&P higher.
All right, Chris, why don't you come back on over to the desk? I'll ask these guys if they're trading or fading your picks. So, speakers, why don't we start off with you? See if you like anything.
Do
you like anything
I actually do, believe it or not. I like a lot of what Chris has said. I think, so first of all, on the market in general, I think it's about probabilities. And the probability that we go a little bit lower or sideways from here, based on the fact that you could have a bearish formation there, I think you need to take that into account as a trader. That being said, in a bearish environment, in a down tape, what was up today? The Facebook. And anything like that, anything that bucks the trend, there's a type of a divergence, that's what BK likes.
By the way, Chris wasn't being rude. He was just drawing with his middle finger, which is just something you have to watch at home. Be careful. So I think the call on the market is such that we're consolidating after what is really a historic V-shaped recovery. And in fact, people, I think, are making a bigger deal about this. Like, the reality is that the market is looking for signals on earnings, and that does not imply what I think most people believe and have this fear of some type of a retest. So how do we get to the next level? Agree that we're going to need it from mega cap tech. I think if you look at the names that might be best positioned to do that, I actually think it would be Apple, because I think Apple is an earnings announcement away from changing the tide on something that really has been a headwind for the S&P. It's the biggest weighted stock, and I think Apple's.
How does the chart look on Apple?
The bearish case on Apple is so well known. Right now, if you look, Apple has the fewest number of buy recommendations from sell-side analysts at any point in the last 15 years. The street is negative on Apple. Another name that quietly outperformed today. That's a stock that's getting better. It rallies back to the 200. Another name, obviously given the weight, that's very important. You get that working, it's hard to fight the tape.
Grasso.
I think Microsoft is running into resistance, just to take it on a granular level. I think Bank of America, you look at a 2-10 spread, has actually turned and is more narrowing now. You need that to be bullish. You need that to widen to be bullish for the banks. And I think the overall market probably comes here a touch lower than where Chris said. So I think all of these are sells because the overall market probably comes in from here about 5 to 7%.
Well, we mentioned rates here, and I think what's notable is you've had awful economic data over the last few weeks that can't push rates back below 265. There seems to be a little different tone out of the bond market. 2s and 30s have actually steepened here pretty meaningfully. 2s and 30s are 9-month highs. So there's a change there with the curve. I think that's bullish for stocks like Bank of America.